On the morning of September 11th, 2001, ordinary life in the United States fractured in a few precise, surreal minutes. To understand this day, start with the simple facts. For commercial airliners were hijacked by 19 militants associated with Al-Qaeda. Two planes, American Airlines Flight 11 and United Airlines Flight 175, were deliberately flown into the north and south towers of the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan. A third, American Airlines Flight 77, struck the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia. The fourth flight, United Airlines Flight 93, crashed in a Pennsylvania field after passengers fought back. This is the what. The win is anchored. Early morning local time, September 11, 2001 hours that would be recorded in newspapers, memorials, and millions of memories. The where spans New York City, Arlington, and a small patch of Pennsylvania, but the ripples spread worldwide. Who carried out the attacks? 19 hijackers linked to Al-Qaeda, an extremist network led by Osama bin Laden. Who were the immediate victims? Nearly 3,000 people died that day: workers, firefighters, police officers, travelers, and ordinary citizens. Families and communities were transformed in an instant. How did the attacks unfold operationally? The hijackers trained to use commercial aircraft as weapons, exploited gaps in aviation security, and carried out coordinated strikes with chilling precision. Why did Al-Qaeda pursue this plan? Their leadership framed it as a strike against American power institutions and presence in the Middle East. In their propaganda, they sought to create fear and provoke a response they believed would further their cause. But to reduce that morning to a cold political calculus is to miss the human scale. The smoke, the plumes, the shocking images of falling people, frantic phone calls, and the chaotic bravery of first responders who stormed burning stairwells. These were not abstractions, they were lives halted mid-course, workers heading to their offices, travelers on routine flights, mothers and fathers, students and retirees. The immediate aftermath saw an outpouring of grief and solidarity across the globe. Flags were flown at half-mast vigils, sprouted in unfamiliar places, and a long sequence of policy, military, and social shifts began that would reshape the 21st century. Within hours and days, the U.S. government framed the attacks as an act of war, not merely criminal terrorism, setting the stage for the major responses that would follow. To get a clearer picture of why this was possible, you need to examine the security, intelligence, and policy context. Before September 11th, the U.S. and other countries had dealt with terrorism largely as law enforcement challenges, investigations, arrest, trials. The hijackers capitalized on that framework. Aviation security was more porous. Cockpit doors were not reinforced, passenger profiling and watch lists were limited and scattered across agencies, and information sharing between intelligence services and local law enforcement was often weak. The how of 9/11 therefore rests on both the deliberate planning of Al-Qaeda and these institutional blind spots. The attackers exploited standard operating assumptions. Pilots trained to cooperate with hijackers to reduce risk to passengers, and air traffic controllers focused on navigation rather than onboard threats. Intelligence had picked up pieces, sparse warnings, intercepted communications, hinting at potential attacks, but these fragments were not assembled into a coherent, actionable picture. Some analysts later called this a failure not of a single agency, but of a fragmented system. FBI, CIA, FAA, and local police often held complementary fragments, but lacked mechanisms to fuse them into a decisive preemptive posture. Who were the perpetrators beyond the label Al-Qaeda? They were a mix of Saudis, Egyptians, and citizens of other countries recruited by a transnational network that drew on ideology, grievance, and logistical training. Many of them had spent months in the U.S. before the attacks, attending flight schools and acquiring everyday skills that enabled their plan. The operational depth shows an organization that had moved from episodic acts, bombings, assassinations, toward strategic shift, using passenger aircraft themselves as delivery systems for mass casualties and symbolic destruction. Why choose symbolic targets? The World Trade Center embodied global finance and a cosmopolitan, interconnected America. The Pentagon represented military power. Striking these institutions was designed to puncture the sense of security and global dominance that the perpetrators resented and sought to challenge. The choice of civilian airliners ensured mass casualties and guaranteed media attention. The mental image imprinted on the world planes turned into missiles to towers, collapsing worked as their signal. That signal reshaped geopolitics. It provided the U.S. political leadership with a narrative to justify sweeping policy decisions, including the 2001 authorization for use of military force, new immigration and surveillance measures, and the global war on terror. The human story persisted underneath and through these policies. The victims' families pushed for knowledge, accountability, and memorialization. Their testimonies were urgent, raw, and unignorable, every name a proof against abstraction. At the same time, emergency personnel confronted unprecedented urban catastrophe. Firefighters who ascended stairwells, police who coordinated evacuation, and medical responders who improvised triage in streets that had become dangerous zones. Their bravery and loss, 343 firefighters among the dead, became a defining American narrative thread of sacrifice and resilience. Behind each policy decision that followed was the question of cause and consequence. Why did the U.S. invade Afghanistan, and how did that decision connect to 9/11? Within days, the U.S. identified al-Qaeda's base of operations in Afghanistan and the Taliban regime that hosted it. The Taliban's refusal to surrender bin Laden or dismantle al-Qaeda camps made Afghanistan the immediate theater for a military response. The who here includes thousands of U.S. and coalition soldiers, Afghan civilians, and militant fighters. The what includes both direct strikes on terrorist infrastructure and the broader project of regime change and state building. The how combines special operations, air power, and alliance building. In the short term, the U.S. removed the Taliban from power and disrupted al-Qaeda's ability to plan large-scale external operations in Afghanistan. But the longer-term why of outcomes, why conflict endured, and why the Taliban resurged years later requires a fuller account that spans reconstruction failures, local politics, regional dynamics, including Pakistan's role and influence over some militant groups, and the limits of external state building. These are complex threads. Corruption in reconstructed institutions, uneven economic development, and a lack of legitimate, resilient local governance created spaces for insurgency to re-emerge. The U.S. decision to also pursue a broader war on terror had worldwide reach. Counterterrorism partnerships were strengthened, intelligence frameworks expanded, and domestic security practices, surveillance, airports, screening, data collection were transformed. Some of these changes increased safety, others raised civil liberty concerns. The USA Patriot Act and other laws broadened authorities for surveillance and detention, provoking contentious debates about privacy, due process, and human rights. The how of domestic change was legal and bureaucratic. New agencies fused data centers and cooperative arrangements across borders. The who of consequences also included Muslim communities worldwide who faced increased suspicion, discrimination, and in some cases surveillance and detention. To fully understand the post-9/11 years, we must ask not only what changed, but what was lost. Trust between communities and institutions, the naive assumption that the distant was irrelevant, and the sense that global politics could be kept separate from everyday life. The immediate how of daily life changed. 2 airport routines, identity checks, and a new security vocabulary entered common speech. Long-term, these changes influenced foreign policy cycles. New interventions, the expansion of drone warfare, and the recalibration of alliances and priorities. Each step taken in Washington, Kabul, or Islamabad had local reverberations, families displaced, economies disrupted, and politics altered. The human cost of these strategic decisions is measured in lives, in rubble and trauma, and in transformed landscapes, both urban and psychological. Another central question is the narrative battle over truth, memory, and responsibility. Who controls the story of 9/11? From the earliest hours, competing narratives emerged. Official government explanations, journalistic accounts, survivor testimony, and a range of conspiracy theories. The what of memory management involved investigations such as the 9/11 Commission report, a voluminous document that synthesized evidence about intelligence failures, policy choices, and the chain of events. The Commission's recommendations reshaped the U.S. intelligence architecture. The creation of a Director of National Intelligence restructured information sharing protocols and renewed emphasis on interagency coordination. Yet public debate never fully settled, partly because of grief, partly because of the scale of the events, and partly because available evidence left real, unanswered questions in the margins. The how of institutional change was bureaucratic consolidation, but the why of public skepticism included distrust in government and the emotional need for precise closure. Memory itself became contested terrain. Memorials, museums, and public ceremonies sought to enshrine victims' names and tell the story in humane, factual ways. The National September 11th Memorial and Museum in New York is emblematic of an attempt to anchor memory in names, artifacts, and context, neither sanitizing violence nor indulging spectacle. These memorials tried to balance honoring victims, documenting the facts, and resisting political instrumentalization. Yet the cultural aftershocks persisted. Film, literature, television, and digital media explore the attack's causes and consequences, sometimes deepening understanding and sometimes simplifying. The who of cultural creation included journalists who pursued deep investigations, academics who analyzed geopolitical roots, and artists who translated grief and anger into public expression. The why of this cultural production is simple. Societies try to process trauma through narrative. But narrative also shapes policy. How people remember 9/11 influences support for war surveillance and alliances. This is why understanding narration matters as much as understanding tactical facts. Finally, we must ask what lessons remain and how to translate knowledge into policy and civic resilience. What does 9/11 teach about the limits of security measures and the importance of governance, diplomacy, and social cohesion? First, prevention requires intelligence fusion, community engagement, and long-term attention to the root drivers of extremism, political exclusion, violent radicalization, and transnational grievance networks. Second, military action alone cannot solve complex social and political problems. Stabilization requires effective, legitimate local institutions and attention to reconstruction, economic opportunity, and rule of law. Third, democratic societies must balance security with civil liberties. Overreach risks alienating the very communities whose trust is vital for intelligence and resilience. Fourth, transparency and accountability strengthen democratic legitimacy. Investigations, public reporting, and memorialization all support healing. How do we operationalize these lessons? Build multi-layered strategies that combine law enforcement, diplomacy development, and civil society engagement. Invest in education, inclusion, and local governance. Strengthen international cooperation while upholding human rights. Support survivors and families with long-term services and truthful record-keeping. And finally, accept uncertainty. Large violent shocks can reshape history, but clear-eyed, evidence-driven policy can reduce the risk of repeat events and limit unnecessary suffering. The story of September 11th is more than an event. It is a prism through which to examine modern power, human vulnerability, and the hard choices democracies face when responding to terror. If we study it with honesty, attending to who acted, what happened, when, and where it unfolded, why motives and structures aligned, and how institutions responded, we gain not only a record tragedy, but a template for prevention, justice, and memory.